Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another Jurassic World Survival release. You can see we've got another of the Strike Attacks, and this time we have the Kosmoceratops, and this is only the second time we've seen this species in the Mattel line, and it is nice to actually see it come back again. And what's interesting is there is actually an aspect to this figure that I feel like almost kind of coincides with the older version that Mattel released, and I will bring that up, of course, once we get to that point. But the figure looks interesting. Definitely, again, a little bit weird because it is meant to be kind of like a hybrid version, so it's going to have a bit of a different design. And I'm still unsure how I feel about this line. Like, I should be really enjoying it because it's almost like a Chaos Effect line without the bright, crazy colors, which is actually not a bad thing because I would prefer more natural colors if they did something like that. But the only difference is that, you know, the Chaos Theory line was like hybrids. These are more so mutants, so it's a little bit different, but at the same time, you know, there's species that have been introduced to the Mattel line in the Jurassic World Survival line that I wish we had just gotten normal versions of before getting a mutated version. But when it comes to this one, it's okay because we already had a normal standard version. So that is one good thing for this one. But when you come here to the back, you can see again the image there of the figure as well as the checklist of the other figures down here. Two of which we technically have reviews of because we did post the Dilophosaurus review already. And the Nanotyrannus is probably, I would imagine, the same Nanotyrannus that we had previously, just repackaged. So again, we only have the Dimorphodon left of this wave of Strike Attacks. So we're going to go ahead, pop this out of the box, and check it out. So here is our Kosmoceratops, and one of the first things I have to say about it is I'm impressed with how small it is. It's actually really quite small compared to what I'm used to when it comes to Strike Attacks. I don't know why it's so small, but it definitely is. But another thing I notice is how nice the actual paintwork and colors are. I think it actually looks really good when it comes to the amount of paintwork that Mattel has given this one, because more times than not, we don't get that much color on our figures. So it is nice to see it, again, with a little bit of color added to it, just missing nail paint. But we're going to bring it in here for a closer look, and I don't know how my camera is going to react to it because it doesn't normally like greens. But starting here in the head sculpt, you can see the head sculpt is definitely quite highly detailed. You've got some gorgeous scale detail. I can feel this one would be a fun one to repaint because the detail looks super, super crisp on it. But we have a primary green tone of color here for the face. There are actually some speckles that I can see on this one that's been added to. It looks like maybe brown, kind of hard to really tell. I also really like the eye paint. The eye paint looks very lifelike. We have a yellowish tone with a black pupil for the eyes, and it looks very good. I wish we had paintwork for the beak. Unfortunately, we do not. And we actually have no paintwork anywhere in the head outside of the eye area when it comes to the overall head itself, except for, of course, you do have these parts that have alternate color, but these are actually added separately. You can just see that when you look at them, that they're alternate pieces that are created in that color. But as you lead up into the horns, again, you do have a lighter tone, kind of like a really light brown or a tan for the horns. The sculpting of the horns looks pretty nice when it comes to the fine detail, but you can very obviously see that that was attached after. It's not even like perfectly attached. There's like a little gap right there, which is unfortunate. You have some rocky skin texture up here on the top, really rough and rugged looking scales up here on the top, and as you lead up into the frill, you see more of that kind of running up the center and then out here on the side. Basically, where you would normally see like some osteoderms or scutes, you see much larger versions of those on this one. Also, the horns are kind of like directed back, and I guess that has to do with the mutated aspect of the figure, as they don't really move in the exact spot that they should. But as you move up, you can see again, for the most part, the horns that kind of stick out along the side don't really have any coloration until you reach the top. And again, since that is a separate piece, it was gifted with the alternate tone of color, which does look pretty good. I think all of those horns and everything definitely play off of the nice greenish tones of the face. As you move down into the underside of the neck, you can see again some very nice looking detail. You got the throat right there, that looks pretty good. Obviously a gap right here because that has to do with the action feature. But as we move up here into the back, you can see again that the back of the frill not only features some very nice scale detail, but also a slightly different shade of green compared to what you see here. And as you move back here along the back, you see that green disappear here into a much lighter variation of green right as you kind of lead back into the hip region. We do have more osteoderms following along the spinal column, as well as just random osteoderms placed here and there throughout the course of the back of the dinosaur. The scale detail continuing to look super, super nice on this one. As you move down here, you can see that darker green of the head disappearing here. That kind of leads back into the back. Again, it's the same tone you see here disappearing, and you see the same lighter green that we have up here leading down into the front leg as well as the lower part of the stomach, but you also see a darker green kind of like splattered here throughout the stomach region of the dinosaur. As you move down into the front leg, again, you've got the more traditional style scales as well as some more of those larger kind of rocky osteoderms. The musculature is super impressive in that front leg, though. He looks like he is like flexing for sure, just to kind of brag about how much running, I guess, this dinosaur has been doing. As you move down into the foot sculpt, you can see the wrist as well as the foot looks pretty nice. You've got the nails sculpted out, which do have a gloss coat, but of course are unpainted. We can see the elbow on the back of the leg, some skin wrinkles as you move into the lower part of the stomach. Again, super crisp scales. You've got some more osteoderms popping up there. As you move up into the back, you can of course see the button for the action feature, but you also see those kind of like ridges following along the back of the dinosaur. They actually look more like osteoderms at first, but at this point they definitely get large enough to consider them more so like ridges. But as you move along, again, the scales continue to look really good. As you move down into the rear leg, you can see this leg is primarily that dark green, and again, the muscle definition is super impressive on this rear leg. Like, look at that calf muscle. Heck, look at the thigh muscle. Like, everything looks incredibly defined. This is by far one of the strongest ceratopsians I think I've ever seen. But as you move down, again, pretty much the same thing when it comes to the scales and stuff. You have like a mixture of standard scales as well as those larger osteoderms. And again, the foot sculpt looking pretty good with the nails unpainted, but still gloss coated, weirdly enough. And then we move out here into the tail, and as you do, you lead out, you can see again more osteoderms and stuff, and as you lead out, that darker green kind of trails off of the thigh right there and then overtakes the tail, so you get that dark green here which ends the tail. And again, we have like these weird sort of like spikes out here on the tail, and Mattel has really been loving this weird spiky, or in some cases kind of quilled look for the tails of these dinosaurs. And again, we've got that with this one, and that's pretty much the only area that I don't really like a whole lot about this one. You know, I can excuse the horns facing in the wrong direction. Maybe it's, again, just got like a weird birth defect. I don't know if that could happen or not, but like this, there's no way of covering up the fact that that is an absolutely crazy looking tail that we have for it. But if you do like the idea of mutated dinosaurs, you're probably going to enjoy that. And when it comes to the detail of those spikes, again, it actually looks pretty good, and definitely fairly crisp and highly detailed. As you move here to the underside, I do want to give you guys the Fax app code if you would like to add that one to your collection. But you have that light green for pretty much the entire underbelly. Again, super impressive fine detail down here as well. Articulation wise, obviously you can see the head. I'm going to say that's probably due to the action feature. Oh, there we go. Not quite what I was expecting, honestly. I kind of expected it just to like push it and just go up and then back down, but it actually like attacks, like it's like a jerky motion, as you can see. So it's a little bit different than what I'm used to when it comes to Mattel ceratopsians in this size range. You do have obviously leg articulation forward and back, same deal with the rear legs, and then a swivel tail as well, which again is pretty much the standard stuff. But it's an interesting take, and I actually can say I do like it a good bit more here in person than I thought I was going to. But just before, I was telling you something about this figure that kind of looks like it's almost related to the original version that they had released, and that is, as you look at the original version, you actually start to almost have some of those spikes kind of leading out of the side of the tail. Like when it comes to this figure, it was definitely a little bit exaggerated in its own right, and you can see them kind of starting to form, and it almost looks like it's these same sort of spikes, but obviously at an earlier stage. So I don't know if maybe this dinosaur has just sort of like evolved, or maybe it's just mutated over time, but it's weird that that actually almost like looks like it belongs together and is kind of like when you look at it, like you can see similar aspects to like the larger like rocky osteoderms. You have that here on this one. You can see them throughout the body and everything. Obviously the horns are in a different spot on the newer one, like they're facing in a different position, but there are very strong similarities between the two, so they don't look like they're just like super different like with the Dilophosaurus, where it looks, you know, vastly different from most Mattel Dilophosaurus. These two kind of have a similar look, but obviously in a very different style at the same time. But another thing that's interesting, if I actually bring the camera down, is there is a pretty big size difference between the first version and the newest version, so it almost makes it look like the newer version is a younger variation of this species and obviously has mutated a bit, so kind of interesting. I'm not really sure why the newer one is so much smaller, and instantly when I pulled it out of the package I really felt like it was significantly smaller than a lot of other ceratopsians, or just in general, you know, attack packs or danger packs or anything like that we've had, or strike attacks, you know, any of the figures that are normally in that size range. This one definitely feels a bit smaller than those, so obviously you can see that is the case there next to the other version of the Kosmoceratops. As far as a size goes though, for a length from the beak to the tail, about 6¼ inches or approaching 16 centimeters, and then for a height just a little over 2½ inches or around 6½ centimeters for a size comparison. There is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human Being next to our Kosmoceratops from Mattel. And as you can see again, it's definitely on the smaller side. Like I mentioned numerous times, you can see even next to the Colovosaurus there, it seems quite a bit smaller. Not a whole lot, but definitely smaller. So no need to really do a bunch of different comparisons. I would think we pretty much have a good feel for it straight out of the gate when it came to the comparison with the other Kosmoceratops, which is in pretty much the same size range as most other ceratopsians that were released in the Strike Attack or Attack Pack range. But obviously you can see this one, interestingly, is a bit smaller than we're used to. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Survival Strike Attack Kosmoceratops is actually pretty fun. Like I really do like this figure. I think one of the biggest selling points for me is how nice the paintwork is, as there is quite a bit of color on this one. Obviously it doesn't look super fully painted, but it does have a pretty decent look to it when it comes to the amount of different colors added, and the fact that it does have color from head to tail looks really nice, and I really like the tones of color used on it as well. Another plus is the fact that even though it does have a mutated look, it is very, very highly detailed, so the sculpt looks great when it comes to the actual fine detail and the amount of detail added, as well as just how crisp it looks. It looks super, super impressive overall. As far as the mutated look goes, it does look interesting, but it doesn't look super, super crazy, like not like some of the others have, which is a plus. And as I pointed out, it almost just looks like it's a kind of like an evolved version of the older version that we had. So that's quite interesting. I like the smaller size, but at the same time, I would have preferred it to be in a similar size range as the previous version. And of course, it does have some articulation, which is pretty much your standard stuff, and an action feature, which is okay as well. So if you are interested, check your local Target, because that's where I found mine, and hopefully you can come across it and add it to your collection from there. So make sure you do that. If you can pick it up, I would say grab it and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.